This is Mission Qualfon, a monthly podcast that takes you inside the workings of our company, but not just the ins and outs of business. We look at the ideas and insights that make Qualfon truly unique. As a company, we are committed to being the best and making each person's life better. Join us as we get to know and learn from people from across the organization. What's their story? What have they learned? And how do they live out Qualfon's mission? Welcome to Mission Qualfon.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the Mission Qualfon Podcast. Hey, Jeremy, how are you?
I am great. Marisol, how are you? I'm looking forward to today's episode. I think it'll be great.
I am too. I'm fantastic. Thank you. I love my job. I love what I do. I love the company I work for. I am in a fantastic mood. And ironically, I have a lot of energy right now.
Well, that's appropriate based on our guest that we have today.
It is totally appropriate. Our guest this episode has a lot of high energy. He comes from our operations division, and you and I have had conversations about operations. And do you want to mention him?
Yeah, Sean Henniger is our guest today. He's a site director, and so we'll be bringing him on in just a minute.
He's a fantastic representation of the high energy that is needed to just motivate and do that position. And I have such a respect and admiration and gratitude, just gratitude. Go with me for a second, just bear with me for a second. But the way I came up in operations. And so I kind of categorize people through this filter of revenue producing and non-revenue producing. Jeremy, you and I are non-revenue producing.
That's true.
Employees. And I never forget that. I know what a day in the life is in operations and the thousands of plates that you have going and all the client needs that are being met. On top of having worked for Mike Morrow in operations, knowing that the baseline is operational excellence. Right. It's not what we aspire to, it's the baseline. We aspire to continuous improvement. So knowing all the things that I know about that department, I just have such respect for it and appreciation for it, as well as the complete and utter awareness that is a time in my life that's passed. And I just want to clarify, non-revenue doesn't mean, that you and I don't have worth or we don't accomplish things or have a value in the organization. We all do. It's just, again, it's kind of the way that I categorize our jobs. Right. And I think Sean is an excellent representation of the type of people we have running our ops, and that's great.
And thank goodness for people like Sean that have that drive and that energy. It's the operations side that keeps us in business. So yeah, we really appreciate Sean and those folks. Sean helped us on a number of modules we were creating for our supervisor certification program about a year and a half ago. And he did at least 2, maybe 3 of our modules on our strides values. Sean's very high energy and a lot of fun, and I'm sure a great guy to work with. He's the site director at our Troy, Michigan site. Sean, good morning. How are you?
Hey, Jeremy. Thank you very much for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Well, thanks. We're looking forward to this conversation. And I owe you an apology right out of the gate, Sean. Sean, as he was helping us with these modules, he shared a great quote from UCLA basketball coach John Wooden, who's got tons of great quotes. Well, he shared this great quote, and then I later shared it with Doug Kearney, who's our president and chief operations officer. And then he shared the quote again in a QML and gave me credit for it. So I just want to apologize to Sean for taking credit for a great John Wooden quote that he shared with me. So hopefully we're still friends over this.
Yeah, we are. I was offended for a little bit, but I've gotten over it. So
Okay, great.
Well, I've not had the pleasure of meeting Sean, but I did ask around knowing that he was coming on the podcast, and the same exact phrase was used over and over to describe him, which was, he's going to be a great guest. He's high energy, high energy, high energy, which I could use some of. So, so I'm excited to learn more about you, Sean, and get to meet you and hear your story.
yeah, this is exciting.
So could you tell it? So you're in operations.
Right.
I have a soft spot in my heart for operations. Lot to do, 1,000 plates in the air. Tell us how you got here, how you got to Qualfon, how you ended up being a site director, and then I'm going to follow up with some questions about your energy.
Okay. It's been a long road. I have been in the BPO space for a little over 20 years. I started on the phones as an agent. I've spent time as a team leader. I've worked in human resources, or what we refer to as the person office. I've been an operations manager, and for about the last 10 or 11 years, I've been a site director. I joined Qualfon with one of our Utah sites out in American Fork. And I got, about 5.5 years ago, I got the opportunity to come out here and join the Troy, Michigan site, which of course I jumped at. I'm originally from the Midwest, so to kind of get close to my home state of Minnesota was a great opportunity for me. And I couldn't be happier. I love being a part of Qualfon.
You know, Jeremy, every time we have a guest on that says that they started as an agent, I think we should add a sound to the podcast. Like, you know how some people have those like drops?
Like a laser beam? What kind of sound?
Because I always get excited when we have someone that started on the phones, because it's like, here's proof you could have a great career in the BPO space.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Sean. Thank you for sharing that. So I mentioned energy. Everyone kept referring to you as high energy. When you just mentioned that you've been in the BPO space for 20 years, I got a little sad because I was like, I was really hoping that you were terribly young. But tell us about how you use this energy to motivate your staff, how it plays a part in your leadership style.
It's a good question. I've been lucky enough to have mentors that have had equal energy like this. And as a member of the operations team, it's, in my mind, kind of necessary. You know, in the BPO space, things move a mile a minute. And the quicker you can move, oftentimes the more you're going to be able to get done, and other people feed off that as well. So, you know, when we're having internal meetings or agent feedback sessions or whatever it is, it's just kind of an infectious feeling that everybody takes along after the meeting as well. So I found it to be incredibly valuable. I've been lucky enough to kind of have a motor that runs that high. Coffee and things like that help as well. But I think overall, it's just the environment. It's a fast-paced culture. It's a fast-paced environment, and that just keeps me going.
Yeah, we talked about that with Michael Azario, in that if you've been in operations or if you've been in the BPO space for a long period of time, if you leave it and work in just a straight vertical, it's just so slow because we're used to this fast-paced environment. Yeah. And I couldn't agree more that you need that high level of energy to motivate your staff constantly. Now, you shared some news with us prior to starting the podcast. Your site has moved completely virtual, correct?
Yes, correct. A few months back, we made that determination. We've been very successful since the world has kind of changed over the last 2 years. You know, meeting our partners' expectations, our internal expectations. You know, it's been a great experience, one that I think all of us have learned from, and one that's been very positive and successful. So it's an exciting move to go fully remote or fully virtual. But I think there are just a ton of positive things that are going to come out of this for everyone, our agents, our leaders, the organization as a whole. So it's an exciting time.
Just a follow-up question. We've talked about energy. You talked about how in your mind that energy is almost a necessity for someone in operations. So, and I know this is kind of new. This is kind of a recent development. How do you keep that energy? How do you keep that motivation level there in a virtual environment? That's
a great question. So I find that you can still be energetic. You can still get people pumped up when we have our Teams calls throughout the day. I know I mentioned our agent feedback sessions as well. That's a great place to talk about all of the exciting things that we're doing as an organization. things that we're doing more locally at our site level when it comes to incentives we're running, more mission-focused things where we're getting out in the community or doing something as a site that really drives the focus to make each person's life better. So I think it's all kind of a mindset. One thing that helps me specifically, I don't know if other people have this or not, but I have a stand-up desk as well. So I find the more that I stand throughout the day, it kind of helps things keep going. When I kind of sit down, it feels like everything slows down. So I try to be physically active as well throughout the day to make sure that energy stays where it needs to be throughout the day.
I know what Marisol's going to say.
Stand-up desk.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have a lay-down desk. That's my problem. I should try the stand-up desk.
I think that's a great representation of what we're talking about, high energy and having a walking desk, which I do not have nor plan to guess. But I think it's amazing that you do that. Is excellent. So I want to circle back to something that you said earlier, which is just with all the changes going on since the pandemic, everything shifting, how we acquire our talent, how we deal with our clients, how we deal with our agents, everything is just, it to me seems really exciting and new. Like we're trying to figure out new strategies, new best practices, new everything. And I love that. But I'm not a site director. So I wanted to kind of get a little bit more into that, like with 20 years experience, with the shift since the pandemic, like more of a philosophical question. How do you feel about this change in our industry and you experiencing it day to day? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when all of this started, it was a scary time because anybody that's worked in a call center, it's just, one of those jobs that you can't envision working outside of your four walls. It's just not going to work. You can't keep close enough with anyone. You can't coach the right way, things like that. But we as an organization, as well as I assume any organization out there, we moved very quickly, and there was just a ton of collaboration between, our IT team, ops, training, talent acquisition, you name it, to really put together this product, if you will, that worked immediately when we needed it to. We had to think on the run, and this kind of goes back to the whole energy thing we were just talking about. We needed everybody on their A game, and it really worked out. In my mind, we've figured out a lot. We've learned just a ton over the last 2 years, and most of it is positive. Even when you look at our talent acquisition and recruiting, it was always within, a 10, 20, 30-mile radius from the site. But moving to a remote environment like this has really let us tap into amazing resources throughout the U.S. In Troy specifically, I want to say we have people working in 25 or 30 different states. Those are people that are amazing team members for our site, and we would have never had the opportunity to get them to join and really produce at a high level for our clients and partners without this. So although it's been an incredibly difficult time over the last 2 years, it's been game changing in my mind in the BPO space, and for the better.
So piggybacking on that, Sean, I don't want to sound Pollyanna, but I really find that we can be grateful through this pandemic from the BPO space that it's just opened up these markets for us here in the United States, where 5 years ago I might have been like, I don't know how long this market is sustainable. And now I just feel like it's a whole new world.
To your point, we have so many great team members in so many different states. Training has been seamless as if it were in person. We've even been able to promote and properly train new leaders that live in, South Carolina, which is a ways away from Troy, Michigan. It's really opened a lot of people's eyes, mine included. And as I said, it's just, so many positive things are coming out of this. I think one of the big worries for me when we moved to a remote environment was how are we going to communicate? How are we going to keep our team so tightly bound, as a team, as kind of one unit? And one of the metrics that we have internally here is our UMATA with Mike scores, where we really get our frontline agents feedback on how we're doing as an organization and even at the site level. And since we have moved to a remote environment, our scores in Troy have skyrocketed. We've never seen better scores. Our agents are happy. They're still productive. We're getting a ton of feedback on things, that we're doing really well, areas where we could tweak a little and improve even more. So it's just been an amazing experience. And like I said, overall, just very, very positive.
Okay, so, we just presented something positive. So I do want to say, do you miss the buzz of a call center, though? Because that's something that sometimes I do miss.
I do. One of the things that I really loved about being on site was being able to walk up to somebody, on their break and just see how their day was going, pick their brain about, things that we could do better, what they like about our site, what they may not like, and just having that face-to-face communication, because I think that can be really powerful. And it's just a great way to kind of form those bonds as a team. It's definitely been more difficult since moving to a virtual environment, but still, we have a lot of communication channels where we can speak to each other. It's our Teams channels where we just have meetings, on agent feedback or whatever it may be. We have instant messaging. I talk to a lot of agents just through email who have questions about, our additional learning opportunities, if that's, Rochat, School of Business, or Coursera, or whatever it may be. So we've really made it work. And the big thing for us has been communication. As long as, you're getting that message out there consistently that we're still going to do these fun things, we're still going to build relationships, we're still going to have that team feeling, it still works really well.
Sean, I mentioned that quote that you shared that I stole credit for. And that was a John Wooden quote. And the quote was, if you don't have time to do it right the first time, when will you have time to do it over? Something to that effect. Yep. And you're an energy guy. You're a fast-paced guy. I want to hear your thoughts on that quote and how you maybe follow that or live that in your daily work.
Yeah. So, I have a lot of energy each day, every day, but when it comes to making important decisions, when it really comes to, talking to our team about process or expectations or things that we may need to tweak, that takes a little bit more time. It's difficult for me at times to kind of slow myself down, but through a lot of trial and error and practice and, making little mistakes here and there, I've been able to do that specifically because of that quote. There have been times where I've had to do things over, and luckily I've had the good sense to really remember those and kind of put them into focus and put them into play in my day-to-day. But I think another important thing that goes along with that is trying to instill the same thing in the team that I work with. Our operations managers, our team leaders, our agents, making sure that we're trying to be our best every single day in everything that we do. It's easier said than done, but again, with consistent communication and really having each of our team members understand that there is support at so many different levels if they have questions, that they're never going to be out there on their own little island, if they need to make a decision or they think there are areas of opportunity there for their performance, that we work as a team to make sure that support is there and we can all learn to be our best and try to be as close to perfect as we can as a team.
So Sean, I have a question about acquisitions, because having been in the BPO space, working for other BPOs other than Qualfon, acquisitions just part of the business, part of the business model, and many of us end up starting at one company and end up working at another, and that happened with you because you came to Qualfon through our acquisition of Dialogue Direct, correct?
Correct. Yep.
All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot. It's kind of a spot question. How did we do? How was that acquisition as an employee?
I've been through several acquisitions actually in my career. To your point, it's not like they're rare. It does happen a lot, so I've gotten kind of used to it. But prior to the acquisition of Dialogue Direct with Qualfon, it's been a little bit choppy in my experience. But the one thing I think Qualfon did really well is they took time to make sure everything was in place. I think more often than not, things happen so quickly, and we want to make it one company, if you will, so badly that things are just moving incredibly quickly, and important things fall by the wayside, things are missed, and that's really when you see a lot of negative impacts, and things are going to cause trouble start to happen. But with the acquisition for Qualfon, things moved very slowly. We made sure that we did things right. Relationship building was a key piece of that between the two organizations. We aligned our values and our mission. We took it step by step, or even baby steps, if you will. And I think as a result of that, it made things very smooth. We got used to each other, I guess you could say, over time. And that's absolutely the right way to do it. There was little, if any, negative impact. And, I think we're seeing a lot of the results right now that our team is more cohesive than it's ever been. And that says a lot, because the acquisition is not terribly old. So I think it's gone really well.
So Sean, I have one more question from an operational background, and we could kind of talk about Qualfon and its mission. But I think I can honestly say that being a site director was one of my favorite positions I've had. I loved it, starting from the phones and reaching that level. It changed my life. It honestly probably just changed the complete direction of my life, and I loved it. But back in the day when that happened, I didn't work for a company that had a mission department. I had a HR department, I had corporate, but I didn't have anything remotely like a mission department to rely on or be part of. And I would love to hear about that. I would love to hear what it's like to get to that point in your career that you are at, like, what message you would have to an agent coming in the door that, hey, I started on the phones and here I am, what that felt like for you. And then B, if you could kind of lead us into, from, you were part of the Dialogue Direct acquisition. How does it go from working for a company to working for a company that has this mission that's constantly being talked about, being dissected? We have a whole podcast about it. Like, it's just such a part of our culture. What's that like?
Yeah. So to answer your first question, I've experienced the exact same feelings as you. That I've started as an agent and worked my way up, and it's taken a long time, but it's been an incredibly valuable experience. And I've been a site director for over 10 years now. It's hands down the best position I've ever held, and I just love it. You get a chance to collaborate with so many different departments and so many different groups and learn from everyone that you speak to. One of the things that we really try to instill, and I speak to every single training class that we have in Troy throughout the year, for about 45 or 60 minutes in their first week. And one of the big core pieces of that speech, if you will, is the growth that you can see in the BPO sector, if you will, and kind of my own personal journey. The reason I talk to them about that and spend so much time on it is because I really want them to know that it's possible, that they may have taken this job as just a job and something that they're not necessarily going to continue with forever. But if they have that want and desire, we have the resources available to make that dream come true. I think I'm a great example, and we have several people throughout the organization, still site directors and even people at higher levels, that have gone through that same journey. So it's a real thing, and we want that for our team members. We want to see them grow. We want to see them earn more, really develop and impact their own team members for the better. So that's something that we really try to focus on, not only in our new hire orientations, things like that, but consistently as we communicate with our team throughout the nation, every day, every week, you name it. When it comes to the mission, Qualfon is very unique, I think. Qualfon's not the only BPO I've ever worked for. And of course, I would never say anything disparaging about others. But I will say that Qualfon, I feel, believes more deeply in its mission. And I think shows that it's more than just words on a daily basis. Their companies can say whatever tagline they want to say about their organization. And oftentimes, I think, It's just words, but at Qualfon, it's all the way up to our CEO. It's something that we see in action every single day, that we try to be the best in every single thing that we can do. And that kind of goes back to the John Wooden quote, but also making each person's life better. That's something that has not only impacted me professionally, but personally as well. It's so deep rooted in me now since joining Qualfon that, I get my family involved in Life Remodeled, which is around Metro Detroit, helping to clean up and, helping neighborhoods that, are around Detroit that haven't had necessarily the best time in recent years. So that's something I've been able to get my personal life and my family involved in as well. And that is just so amazing every single day to see every person in our organization working towards that goal as best they can.
Sean, what do you love most about your job?
That is a great question. I think what I love most about my job is seeing the impact that our company mission and seeing the impact that our team can have on the community as a whole. It's the most fulfilling thing for me. And don't get me wrong, I love achieving goals and I love being the best. I love competition and all that. But really when it comes down to it is having a positive impact. We've done a lot of things around the community in Troy, as well as every other site throughout the Qualfon network. But getting involved with Habitat for Humanity, like I said, Life Remodeled. We do a lot of things internally for our team as well. We just got done running a Make-A-Wish program to help some of our team members that we're struggling to provide a good holiday for their families. So ultimately, what I love most about my job is seeing that positive impact, seeing all of our team members, how genuinely impacted they are in such a positive way by the mission that we live every day, and things that we're able to do locally around our Troy site is better than meeting our KPIs and better than finishing number one against other sites or anything like that. It's really just doing everything that we can for our team and seeing how much it means to them.
Well, thank you so much, Sean, for coming on, for sharing your energy with us. I validate everything that everyone said about you. It's high energy, and I'm so happy and excited that your staff gets to experience that on a daily basis. So thank you, and thank you for coming on the podcast.
Oh, of course. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's been a ton of fun. I was looking forward to this, so I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Sean.
Well, that was a great interview. Again, thank you. Thank you to everyone who's listening to the podcast. And thank you to our wonderful operations team for everything that they do for the company, for our clients, and for the mission.
I agree 100%. I'm excited about our next episode, Marisol. And this will be interesting. This was the first episode we've done where both of us weren't there. I wasn't part of this interview for the next episode. You met with it's an outside guest, a guest from outside of our company, and a very important guest, very interesting guest. And I did not happen to be there for the interview. I'm really looking forward to hearing this next episode.
Yes, it's a first for us. We're leaving the Qualfon sphere. Not really. They have a relationship with Qualfon, but I'm going to tease it a little bit. It's a dignitary from a country where we do business, and it's a really interesting conversation about outsourcing and the BPO space, and from a perspective that was very interesting, and I'm excited. I'm bummed that you weren't there, but it was a scheduling incident, and we took advantage of being able to have this. Well, should I just say it? I feel like a jerk now teasing it out.
Well, I think this is a classic cliffhanger. I would leave it as a cliffhanger.
Okay, tune in for our next episode with a very special outside guest. But Jeremy, you'll be there for the introduction of the podcast. So we'll have something to chat about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Marisol.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Mission Qualfon. Remember, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Mission Qualfon.